Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back. Raw Faith, Ep.6. And today, me and P Dog, we're going to be getting super tangible, super tactical about upping your worship game. So we just came off of our first Elevate event of 2024. Went out to Salt Lake, snowboarding, connecting deeper with 10 other guys, and we had a worship session there in person as a group. And some of the guys just really voiced to me that, they had never experienced a worship like that. They had never felt connected to God, during worship in the way that they did there. Maybe their worship songs were lacking. Just, all around, like the worship game was not where they wanted it to be. And they got to experience a new side of worship. And I know for me, like I have grown a ton of my faith just through worship alone. So, I'm pumped to dive in and just give you guys kind of the tactical sauce around how to up the worship game. I know P Dog can relate as well. What's up, brother?
100%, dude. Yeah, I can relate massively. In the past, I've struggled with worship. It's actually been kind of an hindrance for me,
Mm,
just
really?
because I really didn't know how to. So I can relate to that big time. But this is one of my favorite topics to dive into, and as far as faith goes. So I'm pumped to dive in deep here, get tangible with some actions.
I think this topic is like such low hanging fruit when it comes to growing in faith as well. Like worshiping, man, like it's such an easy thing to do. You can do it anytime. You could throw on worship music at the place when you're just cleaning, and next thing you know, you just feel your hands raising up, crying out to
100%.
God. Like it's for me too. Like in the gym, I listen to worship music, and I'll be mid workout, dude, and I just feel that pull on my heart. Like so. This is just something that I think is such low hanging fruit and growing in our faith. And like you had said, I didn't really know how to before either. And it's I don't know. I feel like it's a vital piece to faith. Like I feel like it's such a vital piece to faith. Like without it, I feel like that connection to God just seems to lack. I don't know if you can relate to that, or
Oh, 100%.
for me, the reason why I'm kind of saying that is like no matter what I did, I felt like you could be in your Bible as much as you can, you could be learning from the Word as much as you can, but I feel like until you connect it full circle with worship as well, like all these different pieces, I feel like the connection to God just isn't there. At least that was for me personally. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I mean, the act of worshiping itself is simply denying yourself and humbling yourself before God and just praising Him with full and true heart posture that He is like holy and great to the extent of what He is. It's just bringing yourself humbly before God, similar to what we talked about the last episode, I believe, in fearing the Lord. Prepping up for this, I saw a lot of similarities. Just when you truly bring yourself before God and fear Him in the way that the Bible talks about, it puts yourself in a state where worship can easily occur. You just humble yourself, and when you do that, your faith is going to grow. Your relationship with God is going to grow exponentially. So I've definitely seen that, dude.
Amen, man. And I think we have that porn and really addiction accountability chat inside of Elevate. And I actually dropped in there yesterday. I told those guys, I was like, hey, like number one tactic, like very tangible tactic to overcoming this struggle with porn mainly is like for me, get worship music in the ears as much as possible. You are not going to, drop your pants around your ankles if you got God blasting in your ears, man. And
100%.
that may sound, I don't know, it may come off as a negative thing, but no, it's such a positive thing. Like even when I was in the lust versus love episode, like I was sharing how when you go to the gym and you see these girls wearing clothes that are revealing, let's say, best way to put it, like them wearing those clothes, like it's on you where your thoughts go. Like you are in control of your thoughts. It's on you where they go. So it's not on them for wearing what they wear. Like the responsibility falls on your shoulders for allowing your thoughts. You can't sit there and blame them. So, but I said for me, like you get worship music blasting in the gym, man, you see some girl wearing whatever, it doesn't matter. She can walk in naked and it doesn't matter. Like your thoughts are going to stay, like you're saying, grounded, rooted, humbled. And your eyes are going to stay fixed on God. You don't have worship music blasting in your ears and allow your thoughts to go elsewhere. So, like for me, worship music has done just an incredible thing of not only conditioning my heart, but constantly being a tool to just condition my thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we all know our inputs control our outputs. As far as worship music goes, like that's anything that you put into your mind, like that's going to affect the lens that you look through when it comes to the world. And so, I mean, the example that you gave, walking in the gym, and maybe seeing some girls with revealing clothing on, like it could greatly affect it versus when you have Lil Wayne on or the baby whoever some rap music, like you may you may look at them in a totally different lens, but when you have worship music on, you're more likely to view them, as God intended, as sisters in Christ, with purity, with respect, all of the above. So I really love that you say that. And in my life it's been huge for me, like having worship music on constantly, because whether it be temptation, um, whether it be temptation to look at those girls wrongly in the gym, or even just to get lazy in my work, or all of the above, man. When you have on worship music, it truly does affect how you view the world and what you output as well. um, but what I kind of want to share is, in the past I've only viewed worship as something that can be done in a church at a certain time,
Mm,
you know, during a service. Um, and I think
yeah.
that I know it greatly affected, how I viewed worship itself. I didn't like it. It was very constricted. Um, it was very proper, and I just didn't like that. And until it affected my relationship with God as well. Um, and now, similar to you, I have worship on constantly, and that's really when my best sessions of worship and connection with God happen. It's just at random times, maybe in the car, maybe in the gym, similar to you. It's not bound to a certain time or place, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that you're saying that because, like I said about the gym, and yeah, I mean the some of my best like connections to God are moments that I find myself in the car going under the speed limit. Now living in Colorado, looking at the mountains, like, and just blaring, singing worship music. Like I look down, I'm going, 5, 10 under. Everybody's whizzing by me. Um, and I don't even realize it because I'm just so locked in on praising God and worshiping and what I'm doing there. It like for so long, especially when I had a job back in 2020, like for so long I was just constantly in a rush to work. Like any little minor inconvenience, I was super late. I'd be eating on my way to work. I'd be spilling food on me. Sometimes I brush my teeth.
Yes.
Like such a rush of anxiety. Now, could I have gotten up a little earlier and taken care of that? Absolutely. But I will say my life was a lot more conducive to that environment, that stress, that anxiety. I didn't have worship in my back pocket hardly. And I also, just was extremely busy with everything that was going on in my life. But like, I remember just always driving and just always having such an anxious energy around it. Now 5, 10 under, blaring worship, some of my, like you're saying, favorite moments. So I love how you're saying, like, it's just such a boundless way to connect with God wherever. And I remember maybe last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was sitting there and I was listening to Holy Forever, Chris Tomlin.
Mm.
And I mean, just absolute banger. Like, if you guys are listening to this, trying to up your worship game, type in Holy Forever and add that thing to your playlist. But I'm standing there and I was mid set. I was doing these 45-degree back extensions. And dude, I remember just like raising my arms in the middle of the back extensions. I kept going up and down the back extensions, but I just have my arms up, man, because it's just like that was just the posture, and that's something I really want to talk about next is just like postures of worship because I think that so many guys, especially guys, I'm sure women experience this too, but we can't talk to women. We are not women, but so many guys step into the church or any place of worship and it's kind of like reserved, like hands in pockets, hands behind the back, maybe hands in like the hoodie pocket,
Yep.
hands folded over, like just like hands down, tucked away. And then, you look around and when you're new to church, you see these other people, they got both hands up, they got one hand up, like they're doing all this stuff with their hands, and it's kind of like I know for me, like I felt pulled to have more animation with my worship. Like I felt pulled to put a hand up, but I was just like, that's kind of kind of awkward. Like there's kind of some I don't know, some tension in the air if I do that. Like, or these people who are sitting next to me, like I know these people. It's my girlfriend, my friends,
Right.
what have you. Like, do I want them to see me in that posture? Like, so, like, talk to me about your experience through that, and we can kind of get super tangible with this. But I know that this is a big way for me to worship is just freaking getting animated with my hands and just doing whatever I feel pulled to do wherever my hands go. I know there's also like like a progression to it, right? Like your hands are kind of down low, then your hands kind of get a little bit higher, and then you
Right
kind of
here.
work up,
Right
as you
here.
as you build confidence. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all of it is an act of submission, um, like we kind of talked about already. And that when you bring any kind of worldly ego, especially as a man, when you bring that into the church, like that's what makes it so hard, man. You don't want to submit to God in front of others. You don't want to, and maybe even yourself. Like you don't want to do that in front of your own ego. Um, and I know that's something I've struggled with in the past, between my ego and just not really being able to get into it because I confine worship to a certain time and place, such as Sunday at church. Um, I had a really hard time doing that, and never really got into it. Man, I remember being younger and just yawning during church at worship. This is sad, but I would almost
Yeah,
fall asleep, like legitimately. Um, and I hate to reflect back on that, but it wasn't until you know what we've talked about. It wasn't until I started doing it on my own and found my own ways of worship and really submitted to God in my own time in different ways, not just through music, even though it's a great tool for it, but finding myself, worship through my work, through, long periods of prayer, or maybe even just taking a walk in nature, taking a hike, man. Dude, you go out to Colorado where you live, and it's undeniable that God is present and working and powerful, man. So I find myself worshiping in those ways, and that's really how I fixed my heart posture towards worship a couple years ago, and now I'm able to go into a church with a different posture and different mindset. That this isn't just an act that we have to do every Sunday, but this is a chance that I get to go into church with my brothers and sisters of Christ and submit myself fully to God. Um, so to answer your question, it took some work behind closed doors, um, to be able to
yeah.
worship at all times and worship formally, even in the church as well.
Dude, it's such a gift. Like what you're saying there. Like sometimes I find myself on Sundays at church, just looking around during worship, and I'm just like, what a blessing this is. A
Mm.
Sunday morning to come in here and basically just have like a concert type environment. Like, ooh, I was about to sneeze, but if you've ever gone to a concert, like you know what concert energy is like. Like it's unmatched. The energy of any concert. I mean, I've only been to a handful, but like the energy of concerts is unmatched. You just hear hundreds and thousands of people just pouring out whatever song it is, you know. Now imagine you take that to another level and it's hundreds and thousands of people pouring out their testimony to God, like their faith. Like the concert energy already is unmatched. You add a layer of God in there, it's like a whole nother level. And it's such a reset for me every Sunday to go in there, dude. Like when you're in there in a room full of hundreds of people, thousands of people, even depending on the size of your church, everyone's struggling. Everyone went through a tough week. Like everyone's got their setbacks. Some people are in there dealing with cancer. Some people are in there dealing with loss of loved
Mm.
ones. Like some people are in there midst of a divorce. Like everyone's bringing their crap to the table, you know, in there. And it's just like it's not a time to even think about that stuff. It's a time to literally just open our heart together, you know, as a community and just fix our hearts on God. And it's just such a blessing, such a reset. Like I love it so much. And sometimes, you know, the last few weeks I've been having that thought in the middle of worship, just like, why is not everyone in here experiencing this? Like, I don't care if you believe in God or not, you could go into that setting and you would benefit greatly, regardless of how you feel towards the Lord or not. Like just getting in there with other people and just crying out in submission that, like, we are not in control. Like we're taking our hands off the wheel. Like we're done white knuckling our way through life. Like anyone can benefit, you know, from doing that and from having that posture, regardless of how you feel towards God. Now, of course, you know, if you're pouring out that faith and that belief, it's gonna be a whole nother level. But dude, I just love what you're saying about that piece of just going in there and man, I'm just so grateful for being able to have that at my fingertips every single Sunday. Like church being free, it's so cool, man. Like it's such a cool thing about our world today. And this is gonna be a little off topic, but it gives me such hope too. Like you know, if you listen to social media or the media in general, news, what have you, like the world is doomed, right? Like the world is on the decline, man.
Yep.
And I used to believe that. Like I genuinely used to believe that this world was declining at a rapid pace. And that was before I believed in God. And now that I'm on the other side of this thing, you know, believing in God, submitting my heart to Him, gathering in community of believers, going to a place like Peak City every Sunday, seeing online services, seeing things like Passion down in Atlanta, you know, coming to Elevate events and connecting with those guys, just like we did in Utah. Like, I'm telling you, the world is on the rise. Like, the world is absolutely on the rise. There's no doubt about it. If you go out and just simply experience other people and experience life in this world, you will realize it goes against everything any news outlet is trying to tell you. I don't care if it's CNN, Fox, what have you. It
Mm.
goes against everything both of those outlets are trying to tell you if you just go out and experience people, experience the world. And one of my biggest things for doing that has been just simply worshiping at church with 300, 400, 500 people in a congregation. Just all of us just sitting there like this, just like, God, you got this. Like, it blows me away, man.
100%, man. That's so true. Um, Makes a massive difference between who you surround yourself with and the actions that you take every day. You know, it could be watching the news, waking up on Sunday, hungover, what have you, or it could be, you know, surrounding yourself with believers, having on worship music all the time, like we talked about earlier. It totally affects how you view the world, whether it be from abundance or scarcity.
Yeah, and I feel like how you view your life is how you view the world, you know? Like that condition of your heart, it's the lens in which you view everything. Like if you view your life as, you know, woe is me, victim, scarcity, that's how you're going to view this world's position. Um,
Yeah.
so, but let's dive back into tangible things of worship. I didn't want to take us off on that tangent there, even though it's something we could probably talk about for hours. But um, I know one thing, like for me, talking about those, going back to like the position of your hands and like that posture, like there's no like posture of praise. Like there is some parts in the Bible that says like in Psalms specifically, like, you know, let us get down on our knees and like worship God and praise God. And there's a guy in my church who does that. Front row, sits down, and he just gets down, man. And he gets down on his knees and it's so cool to see. It's like so cool to see. honestly, like, kudos to that guy for stepping up, living boldly, feeling called to get in that posture, doing it. But for me, like, just whatever posture I'm feeling called to. Sometimes it's just palms facing up to God, like just this
Yeah.
place of submission. Sometimes it's one arm up, two arms up. Like sometimes it's grabbing people next to me. Just
Yeah.
getting, I love feeling like connected to the people next to me during worship as well. But one posture I'd really love is one hand over my heart and one hand up, like right hand
Yeah.
over my heart, left hand up. I love that posture as well. For some reason, it just feels like I'm just connecting my heart, like straight to the source,
Right.
to God. So, but what's helped me to do that is I feel like we all get called to be in these postures, right? Like we feel called to put our hands up, be in that place of submission, like physically in that posture. What's helped me to physically be able to do that, overcome that tension, is number one, acting like I'm the only person in the room.
Yeah.
Like nobody else is here. This relationship between me and God is exactly that. It's between me and God. So when I step in there to worship God, I can't carry in there, oh, that's my friend Jimmy sitting next to me, or that's my girlfriend, or those people are going to judge me or whatever. Like, no, I got to go in there and get what I need to fill my cup to live out the mission that God has placed in my heart, to become the man that God has placed me here to be. Like, I can't let these little minute things, insecurities, egos, whatever, get in the way of me connecting and building that relationship. So, number one is that. And then number two, a thought that I think about often, like, what if Jesus was in the room? How would you be praising then?
Mm.
How would you be worshiping then? Like if he was physically there, of course he's there in spirit. But if he was physically in the room up on stage, what would your posture look like then? Would you be then hesitant, to throw your hands up? If you just watched Jesus perform a miracle, then what would your posture be like? Like if that was the case, if we all saw it, like we would all have a level of just undoubted conviction to overcome all these insecurities and egos. So I think like if you're struggling to get in a posture, you know, you're still consumed by this world. Like you are one of this world. You are not, like, it's a lack of faith. It really is at the end of the day. But for me, those two things have been just incredible. Number one, this is between me and God, nobody else. Two, what if he was actually here? Then what would I be doing? What would I look like? I don't know if you have any sort of like frames, mindset like that, any sort of thoughts that go through your mind, or if you've just naturally progressed and done it. But those two things I think about so much because I get hit with that, like that, I guess, friction, like almost every time. Like it's
Hmm.
not necessarily every time. It's definitely gets easier and gets less. But when you're still gonna get into this posture, like it's still a thought, especially when you are worshiping with new people for the first time as well. Like
Yeah.
people you're friends with that you just invited to church, and then it's like, okay, what are they gonna think of this? Like that thought does occur, and that's how I combat it. Is those two mindset shifts.
Yeah, I like those, especially the second one, dude. That's super unique. I'm just thinking if Jesus was in the room, it's kind of like that old principle. This is a little bit off topic. That old principle that you thought of as a child. What would you do if your mom was watching, right? That's kind of what it reminded me of. But it's so good because he is in the room. There's a Bible verse in Matthew that says, when two or more gather in my name, I'm there. So he is there in
Amen.
the room working. I really like that. Super tangible. For me, um, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I have struggled with worship in the past for several different reasons. And honestly, one of them was just looking around and viewing how other people were doing it. And especially at first, seeing people who were just all out, hands high, maybe even on their knees, um, laying down, whatever it looks like, just people who are all out. It was kind of standoffish for me. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, I just didn't get it. Um, and so, kind of what I was sharing earlier, it took time for me to go behind closed doors and figure it out for myself. So I would say number one, similar to you, it was just pretending like I'm the only person there, because really it is. It's the connection between you and God, and from there, my worship, I guess, posture, my animations kind of scaled. I did start off here and I raised my hand. Um, it just took the pressure away from me to not look at what everybody else was doing and what worship is supposed to look like, and just let it be whatever God is calling you to do in that moment, to how He wants you to worship Him, or how you're feeling like you want to. So I would say that's the biggest one, and then number two has mostly been focusing on the lyrics themselves. Um, I remember going into church, especially at a younger age, throughout my teenage years, and just like I mentioned earlier, man, just swaying back and forth, yawning, kind of just being tired. But as I've grown in my faith and as I've matured in my faith and worship, um, I've just been more intentional and more present about the lyrics that are actually being sung, and what I'm pouring out of my mouth and what I'm saying, and that has helped so much, man. Just
Mm,
focus on each and every word and what the meaning is, and what this means to even say this. Um, that's really helped me
yeah,
be present and just worship God to a whole nother level.
that's so good. So good. I think it really helps too. Like most churches, pretty much every church I've been to, during worship, you have the lyrics on the screen, right? Up there in front of you on the screen. It's like you can sit there and read them. But one thing that has helped me a ton is memorizing the songs, like taking those songs that are played at your church, and going out and memorizing them. Because if you can come back, and I don't know about everyone else, but for me, just having my eyes closed, being able to just like feel it and just be present in that moment, not having to worry about, am I singing this right? Is the cadence right? Is the, inflection right? Like just being able to just close my eyes and just feel that cry out to God and just be able to sing that and having known the words. Um, and that's another thing to get super tangible with you guys. Like, worship is a huge deal in growing your faith. If your church does not have good worship, switch churches. Like,
Yeah,
you are not tied to a church. Like, I'm telling you guys, it doesn't matter. If your pastor has great sermons, awesome. But if the worship is not good, you need to be filling your cup with worship. Like, the worship is vital. I firmly believe this. Worship is vital to growing in your faith. Go church hop. Like, find a church that fills your cup, that you look forward to going in there every single Sunday and getting into those worship sessions with those believers around you. Like, you should be looking forward to every part of that service. Now, I'm not saying you got to go in there and judge every single small detail of the service. Like, yeah, those are people putting on a service too. Like, it's gonna not be perfect. Absolutely, we're all
for
broken
sure.
people. Like, so are those people up on that stage. But for the most part, you should be looking forward to it. And I think that so many people just go to a church that their parents went to, or the church that's just like closest to them, or just somehow they landed upon this church and they just keep going back, and it's just dry. It's kind of stale. The church has been going through the motions for years, and no judgment towards any churches, but that's just the reality of it. Like, there are churches that just aren't like putting everything into, and I don't know what it looks like. I'm not the head of a church. I don't lead a church. I've never been in that role at all. So I'm not trying to judge anyone here. But I'm just saying, from my experience, I've been to many churches. There's been churches that have filled me tenfold. There's been churches where I've just been like, wow, this is kind of trash. So, like, go into a church that is going to fill your cup. Do not hesitate to bounce around different churches to find one that you look forward to going to, because it changes everything. I know for me, waking up Sunday morning, if I'm not on fire to go to church, then I'm like, oh, what's wrong here? Why not? And it usually comes down
Hmm.
to two things. Either I'm not excited about the church, or I've done some actions that I'm not proud of. Like,
Yeah,
it comes down to those two things. But I'm telling you guys, like, stop just going through the motions in that same church if it's not filling your cup. I really want to get that across because I know so many people are doing that. Like, try out different churches.
For sure. And yeah, when you go to a church and you're not feeling that connection, or you don't like the worship, it doesn't make you wrong for feeling that way, and it doesn't make the church wrong for worshiping in that way either. It's just the disconnect. Everybody is different. Everybody's made up differently. And everybody's had different life experiences, and that's going to affect the connection when it comes to the worship. It's going to affect the connection between the person and whoever's singing or preaching. So I know for me, I just said that because I used to think I was wrong for that. Not being able to go in church and be excited about it. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I got to fix something inside of me. But really, I mean, there's 100,000 different ways that you can worship God, and in so many different ways that you could sing a song, man. There's tons of different styles. Some person may like heavy metal worship, man. I don't know. Everybody's different, but I'm just saying. I mean, one of the guys at our
It's
event this
out
past
there.
weekend, yeah, it is out there. So just don't feel wrong for feeling that way. And reiterating what Matt said, like, go and find the one that fits you best.
And if you're like, well, guys, I live in a small town, like I'm limited to the church experience. Number one, where's the nearest church that you can drive to, and how far are you willing to go to get there? Austin, our community manager, drives an hour to church and an hour back every
Yep.
single Sunday and every single Wednesday to be a part of the leading the youth group. Like, dude's committed to his faith. He's dedicated. Now, like if you're like, oh, that's just I don't have that in my schedule, what have you? It's like, how far are you willing to go? Like that is the question I would ask there. But if you are in a small town, number one, how far you want to drive. Number two, turn on the TV, get some
For sure.
online stuff going at first. Like maybe you don't even have to drive the hour. Check out an online service to determine if you like it or not. Don't stick to an online service you alone in your house. Do not stick to that. You need to be going in person and connecting with other believers, feeling that worship around you physically. Like, do not stick to online sermons. But I'm just saying you can get your toes wet with a church by experiencing their online experience to be like, okay, is that even worth driving the hour plus two? So you don't have to, waste the time driving. So you can kind of check it out that way. But do not stick to online. So just those two things, because I know for me, living in a small town, growing up in a small town, I should say, I'm not in a small town anymore. 500,000 people in this city, but for me, it was just like there was no churches here, like very limited amount of churches. So, and I think that also too, like if you are in that small town, that hometown that you've been in your entire life, it's got. I think it is going to be harder to connect with God. I'm just going to put that out there, but it's going to be harder to go in a place in a small town where you know everybody knows you, they know where you've been, what you've done. Like small towns are just extremely judgmental, and that is not the way of God at all, but it's just a reality, and you're feeling that. You're feeling like eyes are on you. Other people are feeling like eyes are on them. They may not even be thinking about you or what you've done. You may not even be thinking about them and what they've done, but it's just the reality of a small town when you know everyone. So, I mean, you see it all over the self-development space. Like the best thing you can do is move out of your hometown, right? But all I'm saying is just go the distance to find a place of worship that fills your cup. Whatever that looks like, do it. It is going to be worth it. Your faith is going to grow exponentially. And yeah, I mean, I've just experienced both sides. And even for like changing churches, I moved down to Florida, moving with Joey. Him and Gabe, they're going to this church down in Orlando. And I go to the church. I probably went one, two, three times. One time was alone by myself. Um, and I just wasn't getting filled by this church. Good church, but I just was not like over the top about this church. And so I tell these guys, I'm like, hey, like if you guys want to keep going there, great. I was like, I'm gonna go check out some other churches. Like
Yeah.
there are just way too many churches in Orlando, Florida, for me to continue going to this one church that's not really filling my cup. Like there's hundreds of churches in this city. So I go check out first church I check out Action Church, and it was actually a recommendation from a friend of a friend of a friend kind of deal. Crazy how God worked there, but I go check it out. Joey tags along, and we just absolutely love it. Joey's like, "Oh, we're done with that old church. Like, we're all in on this new church." So we close Gabe. Gabe comes, checks it out. Gabe absolutely loves it. Like, and now they like are involved in that church. They're going to men's night. They are
Let's
like Joey's telling me about that pastor every time I call him. He's like, "Oh, he's like Justin crushed another sermon." Like,
go.
so like it just goes to show right there, like it just took one person being willing to be like, hey, like if you guys want to stick here, cool, but like I'm gonna just kind of jump around and see what else I may be able to find. If I find nothing, we can come back, great, or I'll come back, great. But like, and then next thing you know, like their faith has grown from just switching churches. They found a
Mhm.
spot that's better for them, and like you're saying, nothing against the church, people just react differently in different environments. And I
Yeah,
will say that that new church that we went to, a lot younger, a lot more youthful energy. Even the pastor, a lot younger, a lot more relatable for us young guys. Like there is something to be said for age of a church. Like if you're going to a
Mhm.
church, super old people, super old pastor, like nothing against them, great for them, but just like life evolves, things change. The Bible does not change. The truth should remain the same, absolutely. But the way that it is, digested and shared and told should absolutely change to be, relatable to
yeah,
where we're at in life. I truly believe that.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, the music is essentially just a vessel for the truth, and you can change that vessel however you need it to. That's what I've
Mm.
found as well. But as you were saying, dude, it's 2024. Like, there's plenty of churches out there. You've got worship on your phone. Just there's so many ways to go about it. Just get into it. Do whatever you got to do. Um, I mean, down here in the South, we got a church on every street corner, man. So we can go to one anytime we want. But yeah, use your phone. Especially, I think that's been a big one for me too. Especially while traveling too. It's just popping on a service or even just a worship service um, during my time away, or if I can't make it to church. That's been massive for me. But something else I wanted to touch on. It's kind of on the flip side of what we're talking about, and that
Mm.
is actual connection to God versus connection to the emotion that you're feeling in church, um, which I think is a problem that we see sometimes among new believers. They go into a church for the first time, and the service may be outstanding. Got incredible music. The person on stage probably part of American Idol at some point. Just that good. Um, you got the lights, you got the experience, but tell me a little bit about if you've experienced anything like this. Making sure that you're actually connected to God versus connected to the experience and the emotion.
Mm. I've actually never considered that or thought about that. I feel like for me, like, so what you're saying is essentially like you can't get connected to the experience because then you feel like your relationship with God is almost dependent on a third party connection, and that's
That's
just not
correct.
how God is not how God works. Like it's one to one.
Yeah,
No, for me, I've never thought about that or dealt with that honestly, because I've been to hundreds of churches. I've worshipped so much on my own. Gone to the Word on my own. Like I know I've felt that connection one on one, and I know what it feels like. Like I can recognize it. Um, but honestly, dude, like that emotion that you're feeling, like I've just always credited that to God moving in those environments. Like you're saying, that person up there who was about to be voted number one on American Idol, like because some people in these worship teams are insanely good.
for sure.
Like you could go to some churches, it's like small church, but this guy up on stage or lady up on stage is just absolutely crushing it on the mic. It's like, oh my god. But the way that I've always thought about that is that's God working through them. Like that's a gift that God has given them to glorify Him, and that's Him working through them to make me feel this type of way. So I've never thought about it as connecting to an experience. I've always thought about God is just working through this for me to connect with Him. that's always been my thought process. But curious, just kind of where your line of thinking was going with that.
Well, I mean, it's certainly something that I've not necessarily struggled with, but been convicted of in the past. Um, because I think at baseline, you should be able to worship God without anything else, without any third party
Mm.
um, concert type on Sunday, whatever that looks like. You should be able to go behind closed doors and just get on your knees and pray or sing or thank Him, whatever that looks like. I think at baseline that you should be able to do that before you go into church and worship like that all out, because it is very easy to get connected to the experience. I know I have going to different church conferences that they go all out on, which is absolutely incredible. I don't want anyone listening to this to think that I'm hating on those experiences, and just the fact that people put on such great worship services. Like that's not what I'm doing at all. But I'm trying to warn anybody coming into it. There's so many good churches out there that have great worship services. It's very easy to get connected to the experience versus get connected with God, which is the actual point of it. So that's really the point that I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, I mean, I think it like I had mentioned with concert energy, like going to like for me, I've been most recent concert I went to was Morgan Wallen. Like going to a Morgan Wallen concert and feeling that experience, that energy, like there is a lot of emotion that comes with that. That's not God, that's not connecting with God. So
For sure.
I think that is kind of the perfect dichotomy to explain it. Like you can go to any concert or experience that's put on and feel a wave of emotion. Um, and I also think there's something to be said for the amount of people that are there, postured in the same way you are. Even at a Morgan Wallen concert, it's not necessarily a posture towards God, but I think it's something to be said around community. You get in there into an arena or what have you with thousands of people, and you guys are all postured the same way. No
Yeah.
one's worried about what's happening outside of that. Like it's just all we're here, we're in this moment, we're present, we're connected. Like so I think it's that connection to community almost that makes those moments so special and brings that energy about. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I've never considered that though for me. For me, I've just let the emotions kind of run through me. And I've always credited God and sought God. I've never sought, the Sunday experience for
Yeah.
my dependent relationship with God. So I think it is a good point. Somebody, if you're kind of listening to that, you're kind of confused on that. I just wouldn't even worry about it because it's just not
Just
something I
go.
want people to go into church. Yeah, just go into church on Sunday and be like, okay, am I connected to the American Idol up there, or am I
Yeah.
connected to God? Like, if you're kind of playing that in your head, like, don't even worry about it. Just go in there, feel whatever you feel, let it flow, and just do whatever you feel called to do. Um,
For
and I
sure.
really think it's God at work in those places. So, because especially having met some of these people who are up on stage, like such a heart for God themselves.
Totally.
Not everyone. Like something to understand is, the church is full of broken people. That
Hmm.
pastor up there is broken. That person singing up there is broken. So it's like they are not God. Like they may represent God at times. You may feel a message from God through them. They can be vessels, but it's like they are not God. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. But predominantly, the most part, I like to believe that people who are serving at the church and leading churches, just have such a heart fixed on God that we can learn from. So it's incredible to see people, put themselves in roles like that to put so much time in. Man, I'm so grateful for the people who are willing to go in there, time and time again, practice the worship,
Mm.
sacrifice their time, and I can't even imagine like what it does for them. Because I
For
could
sure.
totally see how it would desensitize worship for them. Um, now I could be wrong. Maybe it's something like it's their gift. They're riding through and through. Like they'll put in as many hours as it takes, and they love it.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I have experienced people who have said like I started doing X Y Z at church, and it kind of desensitized me to the whole experience, and I was unable to get what I needed from church because of the amount of
Mm,
hours I put into that place. So that is the thing. But shout out to those people who do it, man.
yeah, 100%, dude. Servant-hearted people that I can definitely respect and appreciate.
Let's add some more tangible things on top of this. So kind of to recap what we've talked about in the past is find a good environment to worship, whether that's find a good church. If your church worship is just not filling your cup, feel free to bounce around, explore new churches, etc. So find that good environment. I think condition your heart, condition your mind with worship music any chance you can. um, that posture, that heart posture, really set your mind on, like, I'm the only one in this room. It's me to me connecting with God. Like, that's it, nobody else. And for me, it really helps to think about, if Jesus was here, what posture would I be in? So those are really the things, like, big key takeaways I think we've covered thus far. Next thing I would mention is, like, finding songs. I think that this is probably the most vital piece of worship. Because I know people who have tried to force worship music because they know that it's good, and should be in their ears. So they've tried to force worship songs that they don't even like, just
Hmm.
because they haven't been exposed to music that they do like. So finding good worship songs, like, understand that worship is just like any other music genre. There are millions of songs. Like,
Yeah.
do not force the same 2, 3, 5, 10 songs that you were exposed to from your church or wherever. Like, there are millions of songs that are dedicated to worshiping God that beautiful artists have put out.
Hmm.
Um, so, like, understand that, like, there is a Little Wayne version for Christian worship. Like, they have that. Like, there are people who are incredible at rapping, if that's your thing, that have gospel, songs in the name of rapping. Like, there
Yeah.
are all sorts of genres under the, worship genre, if you will, all sorts of types of music. So, like, do not limit yourself to these songs that you don't really enjoy or don't feel any connection to God with, or struggle to, worship to. Find good songs. Like, I know even at Utah this past weekend, Braun, he was
Yes.
like, I had like 4 or 5 guys ask me for that playlist just from our 10 guys in Utah. And I told Braun, I was like, dude, I was like, Inside Elevate, like, we literally have Action of the Weeks that talk about dropping worship music. I was like, where have you been, bro? Like, what have you been doing? But shout out, Braun, man, you're a legend, dude. But
Seriously.
he's like, I've never, like, worshiped like this. He's like, I've been just literally taking the songs from my church and just listening to those. He's like, send me these songs. These other guys, like, send me these songs, send me these songs. And, like, it's such a game changer. Like, find songs you really enjoy. Um, and if you're, like, young guy like us, like, we could definitely, refer a few things. I may even put together some sort of shared playlist, get a
Yeah.
resource out there, off of this episode. What do you think the best way to do that? YouTube playlist?
Probably just a YouTube playlist. I mean, that or a list of songs, even just on a doc, something as simple as that. Um,
Yeah,
for
I'll
sure.
get something together. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I want that playlist, drop a comment, leave the word playlist down below, and I'll find a way to get it to you. I'll respond to your comment, what have you. Probably make some sort of YouTube playlist, maybe a doc. But if you're like, I want to listen to some worship right now, I think the number one go to guy has got to be Brandon Lake. I think he's like the whole,
Oh,
whole face of worship music right now. Um, Shout out to that guy, man. Legend, putting his life. I don't know who he is as a person personally, but from his music, man, like, I know he's changing lives, regardless of where his heart is at and all this. He is absolutely changing lives with his
yeah.
music. So Brandon Lake is absolutely a guy to go to.
Well, I mean, I got a question for you. The people are wondering right now, what is your favorite worship song?
Favorite worship song?
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
Oh my god. If I had to pick one, what is my favorite worship song? I feel like it's just like any other like way you listen to music. You know, you have a song, you wear it out, and then you jump
Yeah,
songs. You have a
for
song,
sure.
wear it out, and then you jump songs. So it's like, what song have I jumped to right now?
Hmm.
Um, it might right now might be "Holy Forever" by Chris
Okay,
Tomlin. It might
gotcha.
be just the one because I do. I turn that on, man, and I'm feeling it. You know, I'm
Yeah,
feeling God's presence.
for sure, dude.
What about
For me,
you?
yeah, for me, it's this one's lasted,
Promises.
dude. That was it. Come on.
I know because you just keep requesting it, bro.
Oh my gosh. It's a bang. I've been listening
Got
to that
him.
since late 20. No. It's probably late 2022. Yeah, for a while, dude. I just haven't worn it out, man. It's been a favorite.
That is
Love it
cool to see, though. Worship music, though, like no matter how much you listen, you can always go back to it and just
yeah, you can
absolutely feel it.
for sure.
Um, yeah, Promises is really good. But aside from Brandon Lake, like, what's another artist you'd recommend or
I mean,
group? I guess.
yeah, you were going to recommend this one, I guarantee. But um, I'll go ahead and mention two: Elevation Worship and Maverick City Music, both outstanding worship groups and worship bands. Highly recommend. They've got bangers on bangers on bangers. So go check them out.
Absolutely. I mean, just another big name I'd throw out there is Phil Wickham.
Yep.
He does a lot of touring with Brandon Lake, so I would absolutely
It's a
recommend
great
looking
one.
into Phil Wickham. Um, Josiah Queen, man, I've been loving
Hmm.
Josiah Queen's music too. Put
Yeah.
that guy out there. I don't know any other
His
names I may throw out
his song Fishes and Loaves. That's one of my favorites, man. So good.
for sure. We've been listening to a ton of Garden in Manhattan
Yeah,
over
it's good.
here, but yeah, any other like tangible worship, gains for these listeners to be had. So recapping, posture, find a good church, listen to it as much as you can. Get some good songs on the playlist. Like find songs that really speak to you. Is there anything else we've covered that I'm not really hitting on as far as like big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean the biggest one for me, like I mentioned, is just do it behind closed doors. Worship on your own. Figure
Hmm.
out your own style, your own way of worship. Because we've said it already, but everybody is going to worship differently, and it may not even be through music. It may be through prayer, through fasting, through work, through talking with others. There's so many different ways to worship. So get alone, get on your own, behind closed doors, in your car, whatever, and figure out what that looks like, what that feels like to you, and run with that. Trust it.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything else I have that gets super tangible. I mean, it's something where it definitely takes reps. Like it's not something where you're gonna throw on a song and just be like throwing your arms up and crying out to God and feeling this wave of emotion and this connection. Like
Yeah.
it's taken years of practice, years of reps. Um, Only other thing that I think you said earlier that I would highlight is there's like no right or wrong way. Just because you saw that guy in the church sitting front row doing some type of thing, that doesn't mean that that's the posture you have to be in, or you're not as good of a Christian as him because you can't get in that posture. Like none of that stuff matters. It's all completely subjective. It's a relationship with God, and
Mhm.
relationships are all personal and subjective. Like there is no objective way to worship God, like you're saying. So it doesn't matter if you go in and you never feel pulled to put your hands up or whatever. You may feel pulled to something totally different. Whatever it is, it's all about just leaning into that and just submitting just everything to God. Like that's all it is. So whatever that
Yes.
posture is, whatever that mode is, whatever that is, like just feeling pulled to it and answering that call and taking that action is the biggest thing to get across here. But I know for me, worship has just extremely changed my life. There's no doubt about it. It's something to where like 95% of the music I listen to now is worship music. And that's not just because I'm like some big, like, oh, I can only listen to worship music. It's genuinely just like because it's genuinely because like that's just where I feel the best. Like, that is the most feel
100%.
good like input that I can get in my life, and it's something where I feel like that is why we listen to music in general. It's just for that feel good energy. Uh, if you're at a point in your life right now, shout out Jake, where you're listening to NF and you are just extremely sad and in the dumps, there's no
Yeah.
reason to do that. You should absolutely rid that of your life. I used to do that. I have playlists on my phone, multiple playlists that are literally just like sad playlists, feels playlists, like different stuff like that. Like, I'm telling you guys, if that is you right now, rid your life of that. It is not because you like the music, it's because you are just relating to the emotion, and that emotion is just bringing you down every single time you listen to that stuff. And if you're trying to argue me right now, I was there and I would have argued with me right now 2 years ago, 3 years ago, what have you. I'd have said the same thing. I used to say I love sad music because it just felt so real. But
Yeah.
that's not the place, that's not the posture you want to be in, that's not the inputs you want to be putting in your life. Like, seriously, cut that stuff out. But for me, like, the best place that I can put myself in, I truly believe, is worship music. It's to the point now where I can hardly listen to, Lil Wayne rap music. Occasionally, I throw on those bangers, spit the bars, get hyped up, but it's something where I can't do it regularly. I just feel the inputs, they're just not what I want in my mind. They're not what I want in my heart, about doing drugs, objectifying women, etc. And some guys maybe listen to this and be like, that's soft, but whatever. If you want to call it soft, call it what you want. I just want the best input for my mind, for my heart, and I want the closest relationship I can with God. So you do you. Anything
100%.
you'd add
No, I think
in
you put
closing?
it perfectly. I think you put it perfectly, brother.
Go, go, go. Appreciate you guys for listening to this. As always, comment down below what you want us to cover. I hope that we were able to just get tangible, help you guys out with your worship. Obviously, specifically, we really kind of dove into music. Like Paden said, that can come in many forms. That can come in using your passions, using your gifts. Maybe it's creating music for you. Maybe you're musically inclined. Like, maybe you feel like you're worshiping God in this heart posture of submission when you're creating. I don't know.
Yep.
Like, it's different for everybody. So I just want to challenge you guys to explore that one on one, behind closed doors, like Peyton's saying, like, really get into it because it is such a vital piece of growing in the faith. But comment what you want us to cover next, and also comment playlist if you want me to send over just this playlist of absolute bangers that we have accrued over the years of just worshiping. And I think another thing with finding good music, reach out to somebody who worships God in that way, who really is listening to worship music, has good music. Like, reach out to them, ask them for it. I promise they are going to feel a large wave of fulfillment and purpose when they're able to just share their playlist over with you. It's something that I did when I was very early in my faith back in 2020. Reached
Yeah.
out to a friend who was a devout Christian, said, hey, can I get a playlist? Literally just handed me 30, 40 songs that I still listen to this day, that I still feel that connection with God over. So take some of these action items, run with it, grow in your faith, and we will see you in episode 7.
Let's go.